The villa's ancient door slammed shut behind Mackenzie like the final note of a requiem, echoing through the empty halls of her heart. Rain lashed the windows of the seaside cafe in Finisterre, western Spain, where she'd poured coffee for tourists dreaming of escape, but tonight those dreams had shattered into shards that cut deeper than the gale-force winds outside. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered to the storm, her voice breaking as she clutched the wedding band on her finger, a gold circle that felt like a noose, knowing that in marrying Melody Harrington, the enigmatic American widow who'd swept into her life like a tempest, she'd traded her poverty for a fortune laced with lies. Mackenzie Rivera had always believed that love was the one luxury she could afford, even if it came wrapped in the salt spray of Galicia's cliffs and the grind of double shifts at El Faro del Oeste. At 25, she was a slip of a woman with auburn curls that rebelled against any ponytail and green eyes that held the stormy Atlantic in their depths. Born to a fisherman father lost to the sea and a mother who'd faded into dementia's fog, Mackenzie had learned early that survival meant smiling through the ache, serving paella to sunburned Americans who tipped in dollars and pity. The cafe was her world. Scarred wooden tables, the hum of espresso machines, and the faint scent of churros frying in the back. It was a far cry from the glittering estates she'd read about in dog-eared romance novels smuggled from the library, but it was honest. Until Melody. She'd arrived on a Tuesday in late spring, when the wildflowers carpeted the hills like forgotten promises. Melody Harrington, 80 years young, stepped out of a chauffeured Bentley with the grace of someone who'd danced through decades of ballrooms and boardrooms. Her silver hair was cut in a chic bob that framed a face lined with the wisdom of wars won and lost, deep blue eyes that sparkled like sapphires under the sun, and a smile that could disarm a diplomat. Dressed in a linen blouse and pearls that whispered of old money, she ordered a courte-du with the casual authority of a woman who'd built empires from whispers. Mackenzie, wiping down the counter, felt the air shift, as if the cafe had suddenly remembered it was part of something larger. "You're an artist with that foam," Melody said, her voice a velvet drawl straight from the American South, laced with the faint twang of Charleston summers. Mackenzie blushed, fumbling the saucer. No one had ever called her anything but Carino from The Old Fisherman or Girl from The Tourists. They talked that afternoon, about the sea's moods, the way fog rolled in like grief, and how Melody had come to Finisterre chasing the end of the world, or so she joked. She was an expat, widowed twice over, her fortune forged in New York real estate and Silicon Valley investments. "I've got more money than God and half the regrets," she'd quipped, sliding a generous tip across the bar. Mackenzie laughed, a sound rusty from disuse, and for the first time in years she felt seen, not as the poor waitress with calloused hands, but as a woman with stories etched in her scars. Days blurred into weeks. Melody became a fixture, her Bentley idling outside like a faithful steed. She'd bring books, Hemingway's Tales of Lost Generations, Woolf's Waves of Consciousness, and they'd sit on the cafe's terrace after closing, watching the sun dip into the ocean. Mackenzie shared fragments of her life. The lullabies her mother sang before the Alzheimer's stole her voice, the way her father's boat had vanished one foggy dawn, leaving her to mend nets and dreams alone. Melody listened, her hand occasionally brushing Mackenzie's in a touch that lingered like sea mist. "You're stronger than you know, darling," she'd say, her fingers tracing the veins on Mackenzie's wrist. "The world breaks us all, but you've got salt in your soul." It was romance, slow and seismic, blooming in stolen glances and midnight walks along the cliffs. Mackenzie had dated men before, rough fishermen with beer on their breath and promises as fleeting as high tide. But this was different. Melody's world was vast. Stories of jazz clubs in 1950s Harlem, boardroom battles in Manhattan, and a hidden grief over a love lost to the AIDS crisis in the 80s. A woman named Elena whose name she uttered like a prayer. "She was my North Star," Melody confessed one evening, as they shared a bottle of Albarino under the stars. Mackenzie's heart twisted. Not with jealousy, but with a fierce protectiveness. In Melody she found not just wealth, but a mirror to her own quiet aches. Their first kiss happened on a bench overlooking the lighthouse, salt wind whipping their hair, Melody's lips soft and sure against Mackenzie's trembling ones. It was electric, a spark that ignited something dormant, a love that defied the years between them like the timeless crash of waves. By summer's end, Melody proposed. Not with fanfare, but with a simple sapphire ring slipped onto Mackenzie's finger during a picnic on Praia das Catedrais, the arched caves framing them like a cathedral of stone. Marry me, Mackenzie. Not for my money, but because life's too damn short to hoard what matters. Mackenzie, tears blurring the sea, said yes. The wedding was intimate. A civil ceremony in the town hall, witnessed by the cafe's grizzled owner, and a scattering of locals who'd warmed to the rich gringa and her girl. Melody wore a cream suit that hugged her elegant frame. Mackenzie a flowing white dress borrowed from a cousin, her curls tamed with wildflowers. They honeymooned in the villa Melody owned on the cliffs, a sprawling estate of olive groves and infinity pools, where laughter echoed off the walls and nights were spent tangled in silk sheets, whispering futures. But on the 7th day, as the sun rose over the bay, Mackenzie uncovered the secret that would unravel it all. She'd woken early, Melody still asleep, her face peaceful in repose. Curiosity drew her to the study, a room of leather-bound volumes and brass telescopes pointed at the horizon. On the desk lay a leather portfolio, its clasp undone, spilling letters yellowed with age. Mackenzie's fingers trembled as she lifted one, the paper crackling like dry leaves. It was from a law firm in Boston, dated months before their meeting. Regarding the execution of your estate, Ms. Harrington, as per your directives, all assets, estimated at $47 million, will transfer upon your passing to the Mackenzie Rivera Foundation for Oceanic Conservation, provided the beneficiary remains unaware of the terminal prognosis until after the union. Terminal. The word hit like a rogue wave, sucking the air from her lungs. Mackenzie sank to the floor, pages scattering like confetti from a cruel party. More letters tumbled out. Medical reports from a clinic in Madrid, detailing stage 4 pancreatic cancer, aggressive and untreatable, with months, not years, left. Melody had known, had planned this whirlwind romance, the marriage, as a final act of legacy. Not love, but a calculated gift. A way to immortalize Mackenzie's passion for the sea through a foundation in her name. Betrayal burned hot in her chest, mingling with the love that still pulsed there. How could she build a life on such sands? She confronted Melody that afternoon in the villa's sun-drenched atrium, the portfolio clutched like a shield. Melody, sipping tea on the wicker chaise, looked up with those sapphire eyes, and for a split second Mackenzie saw the truth. Not deception but desperation. You used me, Mackenzie choked out, voice raw as the cliffs below. This wasn't love, it was a will. A footnote in your empire. Melody rose slowly, her hand steady despite the tremor Mackenzie now recognized as pain, not age. Darling, it started as a plan, yes. But you became the reason. Tears traced paths down Melody's cheeks, carving rivers in her powder. I've buried 2 wives, watched the world change while I stayed the same. Elena died thinking I was unbreakable. With you I wanted to break beautifully, to give you wings before the end. The argument raged like the nor'easters that battered Finisterre. Accusations flying, hearts laid bare. Mackenzie hurled the letters at the wall, watching them flutter like dying birds. I was poor, Melody. I needed you, not your pity fortune. You made me believe in us, in something real. Melody reached for her but Mackenzie recoiled, the space between them widening like a fault line. It is real, Melody pleaded, her voice cracking for the first time. Every touch, every laugh, those were mine, not the cancer's. I fell, Mackenzie. Hard. But I couldn't bear to watch you grieve me before I was gone. The atrium filled with silence, broken only by the distant roar of waves, as Mackenzie grappled with the duality. The woman who'd stolen her heart was the same who'd schemed to secure her future. In the days that followed, the villa transformed from sanctuary to siege. Mackenzie moved to the guest wing, a cavernous space with views of the olive groves that now seemed mocking in their serenity. She wandered the paths at dawn, the dew soaking her bare feet, replaying their moments like a film reel stuck on loop. The cafe called to her, its familiarity a balm, but pride kept her anchored to the estate, serving as both prisoner and nurse. Melody's decline was subtle at first. A pallor beneath her makeup, a hesitation in her step that she masked with quips about old bones. They'd eat meals in strained silence, the clink of silverware a metronome to their unspoken war. Mackenzie cooked, simple Galician stews of octopus and potatoes, her hands moving on autopilot, while Melody watched with eyes that begged for forgiveness. One evening, as thunder rumbled over the bay, Melody wheeled in the projector from the attic, its hum filling the living room like a ghost sigh. Remember our first storm? She asked, dimming the lights. The screen flickered to life with grainy footage. Their wedding, shaky cam joy captured by the cafe owner. There was Mackenzie, radiant in white, vowing till the sea gives up its secrets. And Melody, tears glistening, promising to be your horizon. Mackenzie's throat tightened. She wanted to hate it, to smash the reel, but the images pulled her under. This wasn't fake, Melody murmured, pausing the film on their kiss. The foundation was my insurance for you, for the causes you love. The ocean's been your family since your father. I wanted to give it back to you whole. Mackenzie turned away, arms crossed like armor. Insurance? You treated me like a beneficiary, not a bride. What about trust? What about us? The words hung heavy and Melody's face crumpled, revealing the fragility beneath her poise. I was scared, she admitted, voice a whisper against the rain. 80 years, and fear's the only thing that ages you. Elena. She withered, knowing the end. I couldn't do that to you. For the first time, Mackenzie saw the chasm of Melody's losses. The first wife to illness in the 60s, hidden from a homophobic world. Elena to the plague of the 80s, their love a secret even in death. Mackenzie's anger softened, edged with pity, but betrayal's thorn remained lodged deep. Word spread through Finisterre like mist off the waves. The locals who'd toasted their union with kava, now whispered in the market. The Americans dying, tricked the girl into marriage for her inheritance. Mackenzie overheard it at the pharmacy, fetching Melody's pain meds, and the sting reignited her fury. She stormed back to the villa, slamming the vials on the kitchen island. They're saying I married you for money now. Your generous plan flipped the script. I'm the gold digger in their eyes. Melody, curled on the sofa with a shawl, winced. Let them talk. Small towns devour truths. But Mackenzie saw the toll. Melody's hand shook as she poured tea, her once commanding presence fraying at the edges. Desperate for air, Mackenzie fled to the cliffs, the path winding through gorse bushes that clawed at her jeans. At the edge where the world dropped to foam and fury, she screamed into the wind, raw, primal, releasing the grief she'd bottled since her father's boat vanished. Tears mixed with sea spray, and in that catharsis, fragments of love resurfaced. Melody had taught her to dream beyond the cafe. Late-night talks of traveling to Maine's lobster shacks, of funding scholarships for girls like her, orphaned by the sea. Was it all tainted? Or could love salvage the wreckage? Returning at dusk, she found Melody in the garden, tending roses with clippers that slipped from her grasp. Mackenzie knelt, steadying the older woman's hands. Tell me everything, she said, voice steady for the first time. No more secrets. Melody nodded, eyes distant as she recounted her diagnosis. A shadow on a scan during a routine check in Lisbon, the doctor's words like ice. 6 months, maybe less. The foundation idea had come from her lawyer, a pragmatic man who'd handled Elena's estate. But you changed it, Melody continued, her thumb tracing Mackenzie's knuckles. From charity to legacy. Your legacy intertwined with mine. They talked until stars pricked the sky, the garden lanterns casting halos around them. Mackenzie confessed her fears, of losing another anchor, of being left adrift again. I love you, she whispered, the admission a dam breaking. But it hurts, knowing you held back the storm. Melody pulled her close, their embrace a fragile bridge. Then let's weather it together. No more hiding. That night, they slept entwined in the master bed, the first peace since the discovery, though dawn brought the specter of time's theft. As autumn gales stripped the leaves from the olives, Mackenzie threw herself into the foundation's groundwork. She pored over documents in the study, her laptop humming with grant proposals for marine sanctuaries and youth programs in coastal villages. Melody advised from her chaise, her insights sharp as ever. Networks from her New York days, donors who'd fund a fleet of research boats. It was their shared purpose, a tether against the unraveling. Yet conflict simmered. Mackenzie chafed at Melody's protectiveness, the way she'd hover during calls, second-guessing her pitches. I'm not fragile, Mackenzie snapped one afternoon, after Melody suggested softening a proposal's tone. This is my fight now, let me lead. Melody's eyes flashed, rare hurt surfacing. I'm not coddling you. I'm fighting for us, for the time we have left. The argument escalated, voices rising over the patter of rain on the greenhouse glass. Mackenzie accused her of control, a holdover from boardroom battles. Melody countered with fear, the terror of obsolescence. You're young, vibrant. You'll outlive this empire I built. What if I fade and you resent the strings? Mackenzie stormed out, but the words echoed, forcing her to confront the asymmetry of their bond. Melody's decades of mastery clashing with her own raw inexperience. In town, solace came unexpectedly from Rosa, the cafe's owner. A stout woman in her 60s with a cigarette rasp and a heart as wide as the bay. Over coffee in the back room, amid sacks of coffee beans, Rosa listened without judgment. Love's a riptide, Mija. It pulls you under but you learn to swim. She'd known her own secrets. A lesbian love in Franco's Spain, hidden behind a marriage of convenience. We all carry ghosts. Honor yours by living loud. Mackenzie left with a hug and a plan to host a foundation gala in Finisterre, drawing Melody's world to her own. The event was a triumph of grit and grace. The villa glowed with lanterns, tables laden with percebes and empanadas, guests mingling, expats in linen, locals in their Sunday best. Mackenzie, in an emerald gown that matched her eyes, spoke to the crowd. This foundation isn't about loss. It's about reclaiming the sea that shaped us. Melody, frail but fierce in a velvet jacket, stood beside her, hand on the small of her back. Toasts rang out, checks exchanged hands, and for a moment, the air hummed with possibility. But as the night waned, Melody pulled Mackenzie aside, pressing a locket into her palm, Elena's with a faded photo inside. Wear it for me. For all of us. The gesture cracked something open. A deeper intimacy forged in vulnerability. Yet betrayal's shadow lingered, manifesting in a letter from Melody's nephew in Boston. A slick lawyer named Harlan who'd contested the will. Aunt Mel, this marriage reeks of undue influence. It read, forwarded unwittingly by the estate firm. He arrived unannounced, a shark in khakis demanding meetings. She's vulnerable, Mackenzie. Cancer clouds judgment. The accusations slice fresh wounds, pitting family against found love. Mackenzie defended their bond with fire, but doubt crept in. Had Melody's illness truly warped her choices? Nights devolved into tearful interrogations, Mackenzie poring over journals Melody kept, uncovering not malice but meticulous care. Notes on Mackenzie's dreams, sketches of their future home in Maine. Winter clamped down, the cliffs iced with frost, mirroring the chill between them. Melody's pain worsened, morphine dulling her edges, turning conversations to monologues of memory. Mackenzie nursed her with a tenderness born of love's forge, bathing her, reading poetry by the fire. Lorca's gypsy ballads of passion and peril. In quiet hours they danced slowly to Billie Holiday on the gramophone. Melody's head on Mackenzie's shoulder, whispering, "You're my encore, darling." But the foundation's launch loomed, a beacon and burden, forcing Mackenzie to balance care with ambition. Harlan's threats escalated, legal briefs arriving like storm clouds, culminating in a confrontation in the villa's library. "You think you can waltz in and claim her fortune?" Harlan sneered, his cologne cloying. Mackenzie, exhausted from a sleepless night, met his gaze. "It's not about money, it's about honoring her heart." Melody, wheeled in by a nurse, interjected with steel. "Harlan, you've chased my shadow for years. This is my choice, Mackenzie's my light." The room crackled, Harlan's face twisting in defeat as he stormed out, but the victory was Pyrrhic. That night Melody collapsed, her breath shallow, the cancer-claiming ground. Hospitals in A Coruña became their reluctant pilgrimage, the sterile halls a stark contrast to the villa's warmth. Mackenzie drove the winding coastal roads, Melody dozing in the passenger seat, her hand limp in Mackenzie's grasp. Scans confirmed the spread. Lungs now, a thief in the night. "Months to weeks," the oncologist said, his Spanish clipped with compassion. Mackenzie nodded, numb, signing forms that blurred through tears. Back home she fortified their world, hiring a hospice nurse, stocking the pantry with Melody's favorites. Oysters from the Bay, dark chocolate from Madrid. The foundation hummed in the background, volunteers arriving to stuff envelopes, their chatter a lifeline against the quiet dread. Conflict reared in subtler forms now, woven into care's fabric. Mackenzie resented the nurse's efficiency, the way she anticipated Melody's needs with clinical precision. "I can do this," she'd snap, wrestling with 4 lines. Melody, ever the mediator, would coax her away. "Let her help, love. Save your strength for the living. But Mackenzie's strength frayed. Sleepless nights haunted by what-ifs, days blending into a haze of meds and meals. One afternoon, rifling through Melody's jewelry box for a necklace to match her pallor, Mackenzie found a hidden compartment. Letters from Elena, passionate missives from their stolen weekends in Paris. Jealousy flared, irrational and hot. Was I just the next chapter? She demanded, waving the bundle. Melody, propped on pillows, sighed deeply. No, darling. Elena was my youth, fierce, forbidden. You? You're my wisdom, my peace. The explanation soothed but unearthed deeper wounds. Melody's regrets over a life half-lived in shadows, the closet doors slammed by society's gales. I built walls with my money, she confessed, kept love at arm's length. With you I tore them down, too late perhaps. Mackenzie forgave, curling beside her, but the revelation stirred a resolve, to live their love unapologetically, even as it waned. Spring teased the coast with crocuses, a cruel herald. The Foundation's inaugural project launched. A scholarship for 10 Galician girls studying marine biology, announced at a press event in Santiago. Mackenzie spoke, voice steady, Melody beaming from the front row via video link. Her words pre-recorded. To the daughters of the deep dive fearless. Applause thundered, but backstage Mackenzie crumpled, the high crashing into reality. Harlan's appeal dragged on, his lawyers nitpicking the marriage's validity, forcing depositions that dredged private pains. Describe your relationship. The attorney probed, and Mackenzie, under fluorescent lights, bared her soul. The kisses on cliffs, the dances in the garden, the love that transcended ledgers. Betrayal's final twist came not from Harlan but within. During a lucid afternoon, Melody handed Mackenzie a revised will. Assets split, half to the Foundation, half to a trust for Mackenzie alone, no strings. I won't let him poison this, Melody said, but the gesture felt like severance. You're freeing me? Mackenzie whispered, hurt blooming anew. Or erasing me from your story? Melody's eyes welled. Darling, it's evolution. Love isn't possession, it's release. The words wounded, exposing Mackenzie's fear. That without Melody's grand gestures, their bond was ordinary, fragile. They reconciled in ritual. A vow renewal on the beach at dawn, just them and the tide. Barefoot in the surf, Mackenzie recited Neruda. I love you as certain dark things are to be loved. And Melody, leaning on a cane, echoed with Dickinson's Wild Nights. Seals barked approval from the rocks, and for an hour time suspended, their hands clasped against the spray. But decline accelerated. Melody's coughs turned wet, her appetite a ghost. Mackenzie read to her from the Widow's Walk, overlooking the sea, passages from The Awakening, tales of women defying currents. Chopin would approve, Melody murmured, her laugh a rattle. Rosa rallied the town, organizing vigils with lanterns on the cliffs, songs of the sea carrying on the wind. Mackenzie drew strength from them. The community's embrace a counter to isolation. Yet solitude struck hardest in the wee hours. Melody's breathing labored, Mackenzie counting inhalations like prayers. One night, delirium brought confessions. Melody hallucinating Elena, calling out in Spanish-inflected English, "Me lose, don't leave." Mackenzie held her, whispering assurances, her own tears soaking the sheets. In that vigil, love deepened, a profound intimacy born of witness. The climax crested on a June full moon. Tides high and hearts higher. Harlan arrived with a settlement offer. Millions to dissolve the marriage quietly. Mackenzie, in the sunroom amid potted lemons, faced him with steel. Get out. This isn't a transaction, it's sacred. Melody, alert for the moment, wheeled forward. Nephew, your greed blinds you. Sign it away or lose what family we have. Harlan capitulated, the papers notarized by dusk, but victory soured as Melody spiked a fever, hospitalization looming. In the ward, machines beeped a dirge. IVs dripping like hourglass sand. Mackenzie refused to leave, curling in the recliner, Melody's hand in hers. Promise me, Melody rasped. Live loud, for Elena, for me. Mackenzie nodded, throat tight. I promise. But stay, fight the tide. Melody smiled faintly. Tides turn, love. Ride it. As morphine flowed, her breath spaced, then stilled. Mackenzie's wail echoed the halls, a keening that shook the foundations of her world. Nurses drew curtains, but the moon watched through the window, silvering the scene. Grief's raw edge carved Mackenzie hollow in the weeks after. The villa echoed empty, Melody's perfume lingering like a specter. She buried her on the cliffs, a simple service with wildflowers and bagpipes wailing, "Amazing Grace." Harlan attended, subdued, murmuring condolences that rang true. The foundation thrived, boats christened, girls diving into studies, but Mackenzie wandered lost, the sea her confessor. Betrayal's scar faded to ache, transmuted by memory. Melody's laugh, her touch, the legacy of love unhoarded. Humanistic threads wove redemption. Mackenzie mentored the scholars, sharing not just funds but stories of a woman who loved fiercely, flaws and all. In letters to Elena's spirit, penned at the widow's walk, she found closure. "You shared her fire, I her peace. Thank you." Romance's embers glowed in unexpected ways. A friendship with a fellow widow in town, tentative coffees that hinted at futures. But Melody's ring stayed on her finger, a talisman. One autumn dawn, a year on, Mackenzie stood at the lighthouse, wind tousling her curls now streaked with purpose. The Foundation's first expedition returned, data on whale migrations, proof of healing seas. She scattered Melody's ashes there, watching them mingle with foam. "You gave me the world," she whispered. "Now I give it back." The waves replied, eternal and forgiving, carrying her forward. Not whole but human, loved into light. No, wait, this can't be the end. The story arcs toward humanism, but the depth demands more layers, more emotional excavation. Let's rewind. Infuse the aftermath with the drama that defines them. Actually, the climax wasn't the death. It was the revelation that followed. A final betrayal from beyond the grave. In sifting Melody's effects for the Foundation's archives, Mackenzie uncovered a locked diary in the attic, its key hidden in the locket. Pages chronicled not just love, but a scheme's origin. Melody had spotted Mackenzie months before, during a cafe visit, and confided in her lawyer about the girl who could save the sea. The whirlwind was orchestrated, chance encounters staged, books selected to woo. "She's perfect," one entry read. "Vulnerable, yet unbreakable. Marry her, give her my all before the end claims me." Rage resurged, hotter than before. Mackenzie confronted the empty rooms, hurling the diary into the fire, watching flames devour the ink. "You played me from the start," she screamed to the shadows. But amid the ash, a letter fluttered free. Melody's final words, dated the day before her passing. "If you find this, know it began as artifice but ended in truth. I love you, Mackenzie. Not for legacy, but for the woman who made my last days a symphony. Forgive the conductor. Dance on." Tears came then, cathartic floods. The betrayal wasn't malice but mortality's cruel calculus. A bid for meaning in chaos. Mackenzie forgave, not easily but profoundly, weaving the diary's truths into the Foundation's ethos. Transparency and conservation, no hidden currents. She traveled then, tracing Melody's ghosts. Charleston mansions where she built her first fortune, Harlem streets echoing with jazz. In a Paris cafe, she felt Elena's presence, toasting with absinthe to love's layered like sediment. Romance stirred anew, subtle as dawn. At a Foundation conference in Boston, Mackenzie met Lila, a marine biologist in her 30s, sharp wit, sun-kissed skin, eyes like tidal pools. Their collaboration on a reef project sparked late-night debates over wine, evolving to walks along the Charles River, hands brushing. Lila knew her scars, the widow's weight, and met them with patience. "Love isn't a straight line," Lila said one evening as they watched fireflies. "It's a current, twists, turns but carries you." Back in Finisterre, integration bloomed. Mackenzie invited Lila to the villa. Now a hub for scholars, its halls alive with youth. They gardened the roses together, Lila's laughter mingling with the sea's song. Intimacy unfolded gently. Shared sunsets, a kiss under the olive moon that tasted of salt and second chances. Yet Melody lingered, a benevolent shade. Photos on mantles, her voice in Mackenzie's resolve. "She'd approve," Mackenzie confided to Rosa over churros. "Love multiplies, doesn't divide." Harlan's redemption capped the arc. Visiting for the Foundation's anniversary, he brought not lawsuits but apology, a donation from his firm and stories of Melody's youth. The tomboy who'd outnegotiated bankers, loved women in secret speakeasies. "She was always the heart," he admitted, clinking glasses. "You kept it beating." Mackenzie embraced him, family forged in fire. The story's humanism crystallized in legacy's ripple. Girls from the scholarships returning as scientists, seas cleaner, hearts bolder. Mackenzie at 30 stood taller, curls silvering at temples, eyes wiser. With Lila, she built a life of quiet drama. Expeditions to the Azores, holidays in Maine's fog. Love, she'd learned, was no fairy tale, but a drama of flaws and forgiveness, betrayal's sting softened by time's tide. On the 5th anniversary, Mackenzie scattered wildflowers at the lighthouse, Lila's hand in hers. To Melody, she toasted the waves. And to us. The sea whispered back, a chorus of continuance, romantic, raw, eternally American in its defiant hope. Wait, but the tale demands fullness, a denouement that honors the hook's promise. Let's deepen the emotional strata. Ensure the 5,000-word tapestry weaves seamless. In truth, the shocking secret's layers peeled slower, revealing not just illness, but a hidden daughter, Melody's, from a youthful indiscretion in the 60s, given up for adoption to shield her lesbian truth. The letters in the portfolio hinted, but the full truth emerged in a locket's inscription. For Sophia, my light lost. Mackenzie's discovery, weeks after the funeral, came via a DNA kit Melody had ordered, results pending in a drawer. Tracing the lead to a woman in Seattle, Sophia, 45, an artist with Melody's blue eyes, Mackenzie flew across the Atlantic, heart-pounding with proxy betrayal. Sophia's studio overlooked Puget Sound, canvases of stormy seas mirroring Finistaire's. "Mom," she said, the word tentative as they embraced, tears sinking like waves. Sophia's story unfolded. Adopted into stability, but haunted by absence, her art a bridge to unknown roots. She left me to live free, Sophia mused over coffee, but freedom cost us both. Mackenzie shared photos, tales of Melody's final grace, the foundation's bloom. She loved you enough to let go. The reunion was drama incarnate. Sophia visiting Spain, the villa alive with her laughter, easels dotting the gardens. Conflict sparked, Sophia resenting the marriage's haste. Did she buy love with legacy? But Mackenzie's honesty disarmed. She earned it every beat. Together they amended the will. Assets shared threefold, a trinity of inheritance. With Lila, now partner in life and lab, Mackenzie found balance. Romance's warmth against grief's chill. Their wedding on the cliffs at sunset echoed the first. Vows to wildflowers, guests from two worlds. Sophia stood as witness, toasting to hidden lights finally found. Humanism prevailed. The sea healed as did hearts. Mackenzie's final reflection, journaling by lantern. Love's secret? It's never one story. It's a symphony of shocks, survivals, serenades. Melody taught me to conduct mine.